Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting through all the usual political rhetoric to do something a bit different. We're going to conduct a completely impartial audit of a highly publicized financial ledger. When public figures build their platforms around the flow of wealth, digging into their own documented finances gives us this really fascinating objective look at how money operates behind the scenes. So today, we're tracing the specific financial records surrounding Senator Bernie Sanders' public disclosures, the institutional finances of Burlington College, and some very closely documented family business payments. And we are relying entirely on public filings, tax returns, and nonpartisan investigations to map out this entire financial ecosystem. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's kick things off with a staggering number: $8 million. This figure was thrown directly at Senator Sanders during a highly publicized Senate committee hearing back in March of 2023. Across the table was Senator Markwayne Mullin, who pointedly claimed that Sanders and his wife had amassed a personal wealth of over $8 million. It was absolutely one of those moments designed to grab headlines, and, well, it definitely did. Now, Sanders vehemently denied this number. He completely dismissed it. He leaned right into the microphone, called the figure a lie, and essentially said it was just pulled from phony right-wing internet stuff. And honestly, strictly on the numbers, he had a point. His public financial disclosures do not show an $8 million net worth. But here's the thing. This fiery exchange serves as the perfect decoy. The whole debate over this specific inflated number kind of overshadowed the actual documented finances sitting right there in the public record. So let's put the $8 million aside for a second and look at what the filings actually tell us. Section 1. Establishing the baseline wealth. Before we dive into the more complex institutional stuff, we need to establish the baseline cash flow exactly as it appears in the senator's own public disclosures. Following his 2016 presidential run and the release of his book, Our Revolution, the Sanders household income fundamentally transformed. Filings show $4.7 million in total household income over a single decade. And a massive driver of this? Book royalties. Between 2011 and 2023, book advances and royalties brought in roughly $2.5 million. Look at that peak year in 2017, a whopping $850,000 in royalties alone. Even in his most recent filing, royalties accounted for $148,000. Just for context, that's nearly the equivalent of an entire annual salary for a sitting U.S. senator, just stacked right on top of his actual Senate pay. Naturally, this massive influx of capital fundamentally shifted his asset portfolio. This income allowed the household to acquire and maintain 3 distinct properties: a primary home in Vermont, a Washington, D.C. residence, and a Lake Champlain summer home purchased for $575,000. This is a pretty stark contrast to his origins back in the 1980s as the mayor of Burlington, right? Back then, he earned around $33,000 a year and lived as a man of highly modest means. The filings show a really clear trajectory from those working-class origins to substantial, multi-property wealth. And when reporters asked him about this shift in wealth, Sanders was completely direct about it. Back in April 2019, when he released 10 years of tax returns confirming his millionaire status, he offered this straightforward explanation. He basically pointed out that writing a best-selling book is a perfectly legitimate way to generate wealth. The underlying logic here is pretty clear. This wealth was earned through the free market of publishing. He essentially turned his massive national audience into a highly profitable million-dollar enterprise. Section 2. The Burlington College Ledger. The personal book royalties and the real estate are super interesting, sure, but they're honestly just a surface-level narrative. To really grasp this financial ecosystem, we have to look closely at the institutional finances connected to the family. So let's set the scene. Burlington College wasn't some Ivy League giant, not at all. It was a tiny liberal arts school in Vermont, founded in 1972. Its core mission was serving non-traditional students. Think working adults trying to get a late degree to improve their economic standing. It's really vital to keep that demographic in mind because the financial decisions made at the administrative level directly impacted those working-class students. And the president of this college during its most pivotal financial era, that was Jane O'Meara Sanders. Here's the chronological sequence of events, and it's pretty crucial to follow. In 2004, Jane Sanders took over as president. In 2010, under her direct leadership, the college executed a massive financial gamble, taking on a $10 million loan for campus expansion. Just 1 year later, in 2011, she departed the college, walking away with a $200,000 severance package. And by 2016, crushed by the weight of that exact debt, Burlington College permanently closed its doors, leaving its students scrambling to figure out their futures. Let's zero in on that central pivotal number for a second: $10 million. This wasn't just your standard run-of-the-mill operating loan. This money was borrowed to purchase a highly ambitious stretch of prime real estate along Lake Champlain to build a brand new campus. For a tiny liberal arts college serving working adults, a $10 million real estate debt is an absolute behemoth of an obligation. So you might be wondering, how exactly does a small, financially modest college secure a massive loan like that in the first place? Well, the institution represented to financial backers that it had millions of dollars in committed donations already lined up to cover the debt. However, subsequent federal inquiries and reporting revealed a glaring issue. Those donor pledges were significantly overstated. The money that was promised to secure the loan, it simply did not exist at the levels claimed on paper. Section 3, the family business transactions. Now, this is where things get really fascinating. While the college was taking on unmanageable debt to fund this massive real estate expansion, we have to look at what was happening with the operational budget at that exact same time. Institutional records reveal another really important figure, roughly $500,000. While that $10 million debt clock was ticking loudly in the background, a steady flow of operating capital totaling $500,000 was simultaneously flowing directly out of the struggling college. Between 2009 and 2012, this $500,000 was paid by Burlington College, which, remember, is a nonprofit entity literally drowning in debt, directly to the Vermont Woodworking School. And what was the Woodworking School? It was a for-profit business owned by Karina Driscoll, who is Bernie Sanders' stepdaughter. So the crucial takeaway here is this really stark juxtaposition. On one hand, you have a nonprofit college built to serve working-class adults, taking on a fatal $10 million debt load based on overstated pledges, and simultaneously, you have $500,000 of that institution's scarce capital being steered directly into a family member's private for-profit business. All of this happening while the mother of that business owner served as the college president. Section 4, investigations and final outcomes. Naturally, when a college collapses under these specific conditions, the paper trails are going to be heavily scrutinized. When these ledgers surfaced, they didn't just spark internet rumors, they triggered serious, formal inquiries from highly credible entities at both the local and federal levels. It's incredibly vital to note the sourcing here. The reporting on the family business payments and those overstated pledges, it didn't come from partisan attack blogs. The initial deep dive reporting was driven by VT Dicker, which is a widely respected, totally nonpartisan Vermont newsroom right in the Sanders' own backyard. The Associated Press also carried the investigation nationally. The credibility of these ledgers was strong enough that it eventually triggered a formal federal grand jury inquiry into the land deal and the bank loan. Now, we must be completely clear and objective about the final legal outcomes here. Following the inquiry, federal prosecutors ultimately declined to bring any criminal charges against Jane Sanders or anyone else involved. No convictions were ever made, case closed on the legal front. However, while there was no criminal finding, the financial realities remained absolute. The pledges were overstated, that $10 million debt was completely unpayable, the $500,000 did flow directly to the family business, and ultimately, Burlington College and the students it served lost everything when it permanently shut its doors. Which brings us to our final, provocative thought to end this explainer. We live in an era where massive political movements are built on questioning the morality of wealth distribution and demanding strict financial transparency. So when those on the public stage build platforms decrying the flow of money, to what standard of scrutiny should we hold their own institutional and family ledgers? It's definitely a question worth asking every single time you look past the rhetoric and actually sit down to read the balance sheet. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.